Greetings, Eco Nerdlings. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about one of everyone's favorite topics, food. So, there are two spiritual dangers in not owning a farm. One is the danger of supposing that breakfast comes from the grocery store, and the other is that heat comes from the furnace. So the core case study of this unit is organic agriculture is on the rise. So just what is organic agriculture? It's something that we've heard about a lot. We hear about organic apples and organic meat, organic strawberries, organic lettuce. So what is it? Well, organic agriculture are when we grow crops without using synthetic pesticides, synthetic inorganic fertilizers, or genetically engineered seeds. When we're referring to organic meat, we're talking about animals that were grown without using any type of antibiotics or synthetic growth hormones. So far, in the United States, whenever they surveyed all of the organic agriculture in 2008, about 6% of the cropland and about 3.5% of food sales were that of organic produce. Now, organic is actually on the rise, so those numbers are probably quite a bit higher now. So, industrialized agriculture versus organic agriculture. What are some of the pros and cons? Well, in industrialized agriculture, we use synthetic inorganic fertilizers as well as sewage sludge to supply plant nutrients. It makes use of synthetic chemical pesticides. Industrial agriculture also uses conventional as well as genetically modified seeds. It depends on non-renewable fossil fuels, mostly oil and natural gas. And when we're talking about the natural oils and gas, you're kind of wondering, well, what does that have to do with growing plants? Well, when we're talking about that, it's all of the oil and the fuel that it costs to actually cultivate them, all of the machinery that's used to plant them, to harvest them, as well as to transport them. So it produces significant air, water, land pollution, as well as greenhouse gases. And it's more globally export oriented. So meaning we might grow it in Iowa, but then it gets exported all the way to China, or it gets driven across the United States in huge 18-wheelers that guzzle up a lot of gas. It also uses antibiotics and growth hormones to produce meat and meat products. So a lot of the meat that we eat that's not organic is actually given a lot of growth hormones, so those animals grow much, much faster. So we can sacrifice them or kill them for our consumption faster. So that's something we watched whenever we watched the documentary Food Inc. It talked about the chickens that, normally took a specific amount of time to grow, and then whenever we used hormones, it cut that by about a third. And then as far as antibiotics, a lot of the animals are confined into such small places with each other that one gets sick, they all get sick. So they're constantly fed antibiotics. So switching to the other side of that, the organic agriculture. So organic agriculture emphasizes the prevention of soil erosion, and they use organic fertilizers such as animal manure and compost, but they don't use sewage sludge to help replace lost plant nutrients. They employ crop rotation and biological pest control. So crop rotation is, all right, one year we're going to grow peas here. And then the next year, we're going to grow something that's going to add nitrogen back to the environment or back to the soil. So we might grow some type of alfalfa or that type of plant. They don't use genetically modified seeds, and it also reduces fossil fuel use, and it increases the use of renewable energy such as solar and wind power generating electricity. It produces a lot less air and water pollution, as well as greenhouse gases. And a lot of the times, organically grown crops as well as organically grown meat are regionally and locally oriented. So they're not transporting them quite as far as they are whenever we're talking about more of an industrialized agriculture. They also don't use any type of antibiotics or hormones on their meats. So a lot of times the animals are treated a little bit better. They are raised in spaces that are a little bit larger, and they're not given all of those growth hormones, which, there's a lot of studies and things like that out now that a lot of the growth hormones that are in the meat have actually caused some variations in human development and things like that. So something to kind of think about, might be something you want to look into, research when you go out into the world. All right, so what is food security And why is it difficult to attain? So this is another thing when we're talking about food that we have to think about. There's only so much food on planet Earth, and how do we secure it? How are we attaining it? And who has it? So many people in less developed countries have health problems from not getting enough food, while many people in more developed countries, such as the United States, have a lot of health problems because we consume way too much of it. The greatest obstacle to providing enough food for everyone are poverty, we have political upheaval, corruption, war, and harmful environmental effects of food production as well. So those are some of the reasons that not everybody in the world is getting enough food. So some of the terminology you need to be familiar with are food security. This is when all or most people in a country have daily access to enough nutritious food to lead an active and healthy life. So in the United States, most people have access to enough food in order to live an active, healthy life. Now, just because they have enough access to food doesn't mean that they live an active, healthy life. A lot of times when we have access to as much food as we do, we kind of abuse that and we overeat. Food insecurity is the exact opposite. It's when people don't have enough access to food. They don't get enough food or nutrition. They have chronic hunger, poor nutrition. The root cause is poverty. It also, poverty is caused by political upheaval, by war, corruption, uh, as well as bad weather. So if they're very dependent upon a crop and they have a huge drought or something like that, and they're not a larger country that can import a ton of food to supply to their people, then it's going to cause a huge, huge decline in the amount of food that the people in that area are going to be able to consume. So one of the examples of a poverty-stricken area is the Sudan, and these are some starving children in the Sudan. So obviously they don't have enough food, they're very malnourished, and what they're doing right here, so they can get at least something in their stomachs, is that they're actually collecting ants. When people are extremely malnourished, a lot of times you'll see some fuzz start growing on them. Sometimes their bellies will actually bloat out. Obviously, you're going to start to see their rib cages and things like that. So we're talking about food, but what type of food do we need? Well, we have what we call macronutrients. So if you were ever in a biology class, you should have learned that we have 4 different biomolecules that we talk about, and we have 3 big macronutrients that we talk about, which are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, which we sometimes call lipids. So carbohydrates include wheat, corn, rice. Those are all of our sugars, monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. Fruits are also carbohydrates. All vegetables, carrots, lettuce, beets, tomatoes, strawberries, bananas, those are all carbohydrates. Then we have proteins. So proteins come from animals and some plants. So that's like all of our meat, our cheeses, eggs, dairy products. Proteins are also found in our body. They help us to build our muscles. They help to repair body tissues. And one of the most important proteins that we have, which you guys should all know about, are enzymes, which help to perform all of the functions in our bodies, and they speed up all of our reactions, and they're called catalysts. And then we also have fats, which are also essential to our nutrition. So fats, which are also called lipids, include oils as well as fats. We can obtain fats or lipids from animal fats, nuts, different types of oils, some types of fruits such as avocados. Avocados are extremely rich in fat. We have coconuts. Those are also very rich in fat as well. So what do we use fats for? Well, they help us to build and maintain our membranes, our cell membranes. That's why we call it the phospholipid bilayer. And they also help create a lot of our hormones. And then going back to carbohydrates, lipids are going to be our long-term energy storage. So for example, back in the day, before we had modern agriculture and all of that, people would consume as much as they possibly could. They'd gain a lot of weight, similar to animals who hibernate in the winter. They eat as much as they possibly can while they can. So whenever there's food scarcity, they can live off of their fat reserves. So lipids are going to be our long-term energy storage. Our carbohydrates, however, are short-term energy storage. So those are our quick go-to energy. So you might have a coach if you're an athlete that says, hey, the night before a game or the day of a game, you need to carbo load. And they'll want you eating different types of pastas, breads, things like that. So you have a lot of energy very readily available whenever you go out to do whatever type of activity you're going to participate in. So those are our macronutrients. Macro means large. We also have micronutrients. Micro means itty bitty. So our micronutrients include vitamins as well as minerals. Some of the micronutrients actually help our macronutrients, such as coenzymes, which are different types of vitamins and minerals that kind of help enzymes to perform their function. So we have some more vocabulary that I want to make sure you guys familiarize yourselves with that deal with chronic hunger and famine. So we have chronic undernutrition. This is obviously hunger. And then we have chronic malnutrition. This is when we have a deficiency of protein or other types of nutrients. Now, most of the time when we're using these two words, we're talking about poverty-stricken nations. But you can actually have chronic malnutrition even if you live in a country and have access to a lot of food if you're not eating the right types of foods. So in less developed countries, 1 in 6 people is chronically undernourished or malnourished. And then we have famine. This is when drought, flooding, war, other catastrophes happen, which basically wipe out the food source, and people cannot consume food. There's nothing there to consume. So looking at this map, it shows world hunger in the year of 2005. So looking at the green, this is showing us the countries that have only 0 to 5% of their population who are undernourished. So obviously where we live in the United States, most people are not undernourished. And something we talked about is that a lot of people in the United States are actually overnourished. Some of the countries, looking at the red right here, that have the largest population of undernourished or malnourished people are the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Bangladesh, China, as well as India. So many people who don't get enough minerals and vitamins suffer from different types of maladies. So most often vitamin and mineral deficiencies in people in less developed countries are where we see those. So we see a lot of iron deficiencies. People that have an iron deficiency tend to be anemic. They're very, very fatigued. They're tired. They can't really, move around a lot. They get tired very, very easily. Vitamin A deficiency or severe vitamin A deficiency, you can actually go blind before the age of 6. And then iodine deficiency can actually cause thyroid disorders such as this goiter right here that you see around this woman's neck who lives in Bangladesh. So if you could think of anything that has iodine in it, you might be thinking about salt. So a lot of times when you go to the store and you need to go to the baking aisle to grab salt, some of the salt will say, contains iodine. So that's actually a way of the food companies getting iodine into our diet so we have enough. So many people have health problems from eating way too much. This is called overnutrition, which is excess body fat from eating too many calories and not getting enough exercise. So just as people who are undernourished have a lot of health problems, people who are overnourished actually have a lot of the same type of health problems. They have a lower life expectancy because they might get some type of disease. So if you are overweight or obese, morbidly obese, we're talking not a couple of pounds overweight, but a significant amount of weight that's added on. You can get diabetes. You can get heart disease. It increases your risk of different types of cancer, such as colon cancer and pancreatic cancer. So these are some of the different diseases that are actually related to obesity. You have greater susceptibility to disease and illness. So not just some of the, cancers and heart disease and all of the big ones. It actually lowers your immune system, so you're more susceptible to, general illnesses such as colds, flus, respiratory infections, things like that. It also lowers productivity as well as the quality of life. So if you are obese, a lot of times you don't have as much energy, just like someone who is malnourished doesn't have enough. You have too much, so you have a lot of excess weight that you're carrying around. It puts a huge stress on your bodily organs, your heart, so you're not going to be able to move around as much. You're not going to have as much energy, and that can affect your quality of life. Well, I hope that was helpful and you learned a little bit about food and the difference between organic versus non-organic, malnutrition, undernutrition, overnutrition. If you need to rewatch this video or you would like to watch any other video lectures for AP Environmental Science, you can visit my website at www.nerdlingscience.com. Well, this is the Queen Nerdling signing off for today. Stay nerdy till next time.